As we gather with family this holiday season, and after the year or two that we've had with COVID and everything else, you may be thinking about if something happened to you, would the people you love be prepared to handle everything? So joining me today is attorney Alexis Gardner, talking about estate planning, especially trusts and wills. Good morning. Welcome back.
Good morning, Dave.
Let's start off with the basis, Alexis. So we talked about last time kind of digital estate planning. I got a little bit of response, so I wanted to do traditional trusts and wills and traditional estate planning. What are the difference between a trust and a will?
Okay, well, I'm glad you asked. Wills and trusts are both good, but trusts are better. So a will is a deceased person's wishes for how they want their assets passed, whether to charity, friends, stating guardians for their minor children, or what have you. All wills have to go through probate, and so that means a court administrator has to assess it. And it can be lengthy and contentious if there are various family members contesting the will. So a trust is better because a trust is a grantor deciding while they're still alive what they want to happen to their assets. And it goes into effect the day that they instate it versus a will that doesn't go into effect until after you die.
Oh.
There are irrevocable trusts which cannot be changed, and those are usually good for tax purposes. And then there are living trusts which can be changed. But either way, they can't be contested, and you don't have to go through probate. So you save your loved ones thousands of dollars potentially if you decide on a trust versus a will.
So interesting. So with wills, you can't say, I don't want this to go through probate. It has to go through once that person passes away.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And like I said, it can be very expensive.
And so when you talk about trust versus wills, and people say, well, I don't want to spend the money for a trust, do you think it's worth the extra money to spend on it?
Absolutely. In fact, it'll save your loved ones money.
That's really interesting. Well, so you've been practicing for 5 years in many different specialties. You've done criminal defense in so many different areas. What are some things that people ask you about estate planning, things that you've heard as a practicing attorney over the years?
Oftentimes people are more worried about who they don't want their assets to go to versus who they do want their assets to go to. So I get the question of, how can I disinherit this person? And I'd advise against disinheriting anyone. It's better to give said person a nominal value. So say John Jones gets $1. It's direct and certain versus if you just leave someone out of your will completely, you know, they can come to contest that later and say, well, of course Dad didn't mean to leave me out, and then it will be up to that court administrator to decide, did Dad mean to leave him out or not? But if you say you only get $1, then it's much harder to contest.
Interesting, because we were going to talk about children and childhood custody. I wanted to bring up child custody. So in your estate planning, you can say who you want to watch your children and who you don't want. Is that right?
Yeah, so really, you say who you want, and I'd always advise to have a successor. So basically, that's a plan B. So I want John Jones to care for my child in the event of my death. If John Jones is unavailable, then it'll be Sally Smith, like that. And so you have your plan A and plan B, and maybe even your plan C. But if there's someone specifically that you're really worried about, you can also list them in the will and say, you know, Grandma is not to take over care of the children.
A lot of options, a lot of options. I know one thing about our News on 6 viewers. I know that we have a lot of pet lovers watching. People love pets in Tulsa. So tell me about what are the strategies for pets as we're planning our estate and how the ownership gets passed on.
Yeah, a pet is just like a child or your car. It's something you want to make sure that you're accounting for in the unfortunate, event that you might pass. So there are pour-over wills which you can have in addition to a trust, which says that anything that isn't entitled in the trust name that's in my will go into the trust. And so I advise getting a trust and also a pour-over will just kind of as a catch-all. And again, just like you would say, I want this person to be the guardian of my children, you can say I want this person to be the guardian of my cat or dog.
All right, well, Alexis Gardner, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for joining us, and happy holidays.
Always a pleasure to be here, Dave. Thank you.